You know that feeling when you're chatting with an AI and you just know some of the important details are getting lost in the shuffle? Well, you're not alone. Today, we're going to look at a new kind of system that takes those messy, free-flowing conversations and turns them into structured, verifiable facts. Let's dive in. So, imagine this for a second. What if every little fact, every piece of data you shared with an AI wasn't just another line in a long chat history? What if it was instantly captured, categorized, and used to build a live, updating fact sheet right before your eyes? That's the really powerful idea we're digging into today. Look, we've all seen how amazing large language models, LLMs, can be. They're incredible for brainstorming, for creative writing, for just talking things through. But when you get down to complex tasks that are really detail-oriented, the standard chat format, well, has a pretty big blind spot. On one hand, you've got the typical AI chat. It's kind of like a tangled ball of yarn, right? Key details get buried, important insights just disappear into the scroll. But the goal is what you see on the other side, a clean, organized flow where every single piece of important information is captured as structured, verifiable data. So how do you get from the chaos to that clean structure? Well, the solution is this really clever, intelligent layer that sits right on top of the chat. You can think of it like a real-time analyst who's not just part of the conversation, but is actively listening in, organizing everything as it happens. The official term for this whole process is real-time fact extraction. Basically, as you're just talking normally, the system is busy in the background making multiple separate calls to another language model. And that other model has one job and one job only: to analyze what you're saying and pull out the hard data, the facts, the figures, all the key details. Okay, so that's the theory, but how does this actually work in practice? Let's break it down with a super simple example, starting with just a single sentence from a user. So the user types this in. It's a pretty straightforward sentence, right? They're defining their company. It's a midsize UK SME, that's a small to medium-sized enterprise, and it has 50 employees. In a normal chat, the AI would just go, okay, got it. But here, something way more powerful is happening behind the scenes. The second that sentence gets entered, this little three-step process just kicks right off. First, the system ingests the text. Easy enough. Second, it makes those background calls to the analysis LLM to figure out what's important. And third, it takes what it gets back and instantly extracts and categorizes all the juicy data. And boom, right away, the system pulls out two distinct facts. It identifies the company type, mid-size UK SME, and its size, 50 employees. See, these aren't just words floating around in a chat log anymore. They are now structured, usable pieces of information. But it actually goes one step deeper. It's smart enough to recognize that 50 isn't just a random number. It's a specific data point. So it isolates it and slaps the correct label on it: employees. Now, this is absolutely crucial if you want to do any kind of real analysis later on. Okay, this next part is where the system goes from being cool to being genuinely powerful. It's not just about pulling out facts. It's about being able to trust those facts. And this brings us to a really critical idea called provenance. Provenance sounds like a fancy word, but all it really means is knowing where your information came from. In this system, it's the ability to trace every single fact, every data point, directly back to the exact user input that created it. There are no black boxes here. You know how every piece of the puzzle was made. All right, let's look at another example. The user adds this statement, bringing up a whole new requirement for their analysis. And there it is. The system immediately pulls out the core intent as a new fact. But here is the key. We know with 100% certainty that this fact came directly from that previous statement. The AI didn't invent it or just guess it from thin air. It's directly linked. What you end up with is a complete and verifiable audit trail. You can literally click on any fact in the system and trace it all the way back to the exact moment in the conversation that created it. This builds a massive amount of trust and makes the whole thing auditable, which is a huge deal. Okay, so we've seen how the system breaks down the conversation piece by piece. But what's the end game? What's the final payoff? How does all this turn a messy, chaotic chat into a clean, coherent analysis? Well, as the conversation keeps going, the system is building out this global view. Think of it like a master dashboard. It organizes every single fact, data point, and question that's been extracted, giving you this incredible, structured overview of the entire discussion. And here's the magic trick at the end. Once you've talked enough, you can just ask the system for a summary.
and it generates a perfect, coherent narrative just like this one. It weaves together the company size, the employee count, and those specific concerns about GDPR.
And if you remember one thing, make it this. This summary is not just another creative flight of fancy from the AI. The real power here is that this summary is built exclusively from that global view of verified, proven-answered facts. It's an analysis built on a solid foundation of truth that was established piece by piece during the conversation. So this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Whether you're doing client intake, complex research, or project management, what could you build if you had an AI that you knew for a fact would never, ever forget a single important detail? What becomes possible when every conversation you have automatically creates its own verifiable source of truth?